The debate over easy and hard games is so prominent now that sometimes I forget that games should be fun. Kirby's Last Adventure on the Switch was, albeit not a very fun game. I think there was a lot of discussion about how easy the game was because the game was so simple. All of that discussion on it being easy was followed up by people saying Kirby has always been easy. And I agree with that, but I don't think it was ever as in-your-face as Star Allies was. On the other hand, Kirby and the Forgotten Land really isn't being discussed in terms of difficulty. Aside from the occasional, oh, this is easy and it's not as hard as Elden Ring and you shouldn't expect difficulty like a Souls-like game, which is obvious, I think, no one's really talking about the difficulty of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and I think that's because it's fun. I'm sure the joke has been made before, but Kirby and the Forgotten Land is honestly one of the most unforgettable Kirby experiences I've had. On the surface, all it does is take the existing formula of Kirby and move it into 3D. However, underneath that surface, you'll find a lot more depth to how the game is constructed that makes it fun. Kirby is our well-known popular pink puffball who is also some sort of eldritch god, I think? The lore is a little weird and I haven't really studied up on it, but he can float as high as he wants, except now he can't. He's instead constrained by the gravity of the landmass below him. There's a clear design choice in restricting Kirby's ability to float, especially in a 3D environment where, by that logic, Kirby could just float to the end of a level. This restriction forces him to interact with the level design. The levels themselves are compact. There's a lot of stuff stuffed into every single level, but it doesn't feel like they're stretched out to meet a specific runtime beyond the point that other levels do. Giving Kirby this extra third dimension also helps hide puzzles in new places and put objects in different places versus a 2D environment where most of us who have been playing Kirby for a while do know pretty much exactly what it's going to be like. This entire process of stretching Kirby into 3D while also making the level designs more compact is a small step that acts as a giant leap for the game itself. Kirby comes equipped with copy abilities to deal with all sorts of situations. Of course, this includes the favorites such as the sword, the hammer, fire, and ice, but it also includes new ones, like the drill.
Oh yeah, one more thing.
The game also takes a less is more system. There are a lot less copy abilities, I feel, than previous games. A lot of the previous Kirby games, especially on the DS, flaunted the number of different copy abilities they had in the game, whereas this one keeps it constrained to a smaller number. Instead, there's an upgrade system that allows you to upgrade these copy abilities into new forms that allow for different functions. The upgrade system is something I didn't know I really wanted. It gives the game a little more of a progression, and that makes it a lot more fun to play. As you explore, you find blueprints, and those blueprints can be used to upgrade these abilities into new forms, and these new forms usually help enhance the current ability that you already have. Some upgrades are more substantial than others, and that's okay. You can also revert these upgrades if you need to use or want to use the other ability for a little while, or just you don't like the upgrade so you want to use the older version. There are also challenge stages that allow you to test these abilities, and they also teach you how to use some of the skills. These stages have a target clear time that doesn't necessarily affect the big reward at the end, but it affects your coin payout instead. So if you need extra coins, getting the target time is a good way to increase that payout. To complete them, it's not very difficult, but to hit the target time, sometimes you need to have a near-perfect run. So they can be fun and challenging, and sometimes a little frustrating if you're not careful. While the upgrade system does offset the number of abilities in the game, the Mouthful Mode that Kirby has in this game also offsets that. Now, while eating large objects, sometimes Kirby just decides he doesn't want to swallow the whole thing. You know, it's too many calories. It's not good for you. Instead, he decides to take on their abilities by not eating them. Genius, really. It's such a simple change, and it actually helps the game so much. From simple ideas like being a car and driving a car to being a staircase, Mouthful Mode opens up a new creative path for this series. These abilities are usually limited to specific parts of the level, which means that the level designers can design areas specifically for that part of the game. This is a bit redundant, but while the usage may seem restrictive, I think it's a really good way to have very specific pieces of the level have unique designs. By mixing restriction with level design, those restrictions wind up feeling less suffocating and more free. Stretching Kirby into 3D Silly Putty also allows for boss fights to become more interesting. Gone are the days where you sit in front of a boss and you just hold one button or mash one button. Now there's a full range of movement, including guarding and dodging. As a side note, I know guarding is in older Kirby games, but Guarding and dodging, very nice new mechanic for this game. There's even a perfect dodge which slows down time, just like all sorts of other 3D action games. These fights allow you to put your knowledge and abilities to the test, and a few of them actually gave me a little bit of trouble. There are even rewards for beating these big beefcake bosses with specific abilities, no abilities, or just by not taking damage at all. Much like these tasks, every level has side missions for you to complete as well. What this does to you as a player is tickle your sense of curiosity. These side missions aren't available to you every time you start a level. Instead, they'll unlock as you finish a level or as you discover them progressively. So now you might be obsessing over using specific abilities in specific areas, or finding every wanted poster, or destroying every single wall that you see. Essentially, by not presenting you all of these tasks on a silver platter, the game takes an approach that makes you want to explore every nook and cranny of a level. Every piece of this game is about amplifying the fun factor of Kirby. It's not at all a hard game to beat. Instead, it challenges you by giving you side tasks instead that are part of the overall experience. Where some games like Elden Ring train you through hardship and struggle, Kirby trains you by giving you a slice of cake every time you maybe did your best. At best, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a mouthful of fun. It takes all the things that make Kirby good and amplifies them by putting them in a 3D environment and taking level design and making it tighter and more compact. It's a fun game that helps you forget about the low difficulty bar, and that's where Kirby shines best. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land is getting a solid 9 out of 10 on my watch. The gameplay is simple, just as Kirby has always been, but the stretch to 3D and the level design helps make it a fun experience and a successful transition to 3D. Of course, it's not crazy hard, but it's not going to bore you to death like Star Allies did. And the game left me hopeful for the future of the Kirby series, as hopefully going on forward they'll continue to innovate and expand on new ideas, just like most Switch games have been doing in the past 5 years. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.